Only the unknowable commands lasting awe. That's the ancient secret every true strategist understands, not just in politics or war, but in everyday life. When people think they know everything about you, the mystery dies, and with it their curiosity, their fear, and their respect. Machiavelli never said, "Be transparent." He said, "Appear. Appear strong, appear honest, appear generous, but never actually be fully readable, because the more readable you are, the more vulnerable you become. Once someone maps your mind, they stop fearing you, and they start calculating you. A lion doesn't explain its silence, a serpent doesn't warn before it strikes, and the most dangerous minds in history weren't the loudest. They were the most unknowable. Modern culture rewards oversharing. We post our routines, expose our desires, spill our emotions into algorithms that learn us better than we know ourselves. But every layer of visibility costs us leverage. The more predictable we become, the easier we are to control. Pascal once wrote, "We are never more than what we appear," and that's the tragedy of modern man. When your depth is on full display, you lose the very weapon that makes you powerful. Enigma. This doesn't mean lie, it means leave space. Let people wonder where your limits are, what you truly want, and how far you're willing to go. Mystery builds tension, and tension, when used strategically, builds gravity. It pulls people in. Look at power. From the CEO who speaks in riddles to the politician who never fully commits to the artist who disappears at the peak of fame. They leave behind questions, not answers. And in doing so, they maintain control over the narrative others build around them. If you walk into a room and everyone knows exactly how you'll act, what you'll tolerate, what you'll pursue, you've already lost. Because power isn't about being known, it's about being felt. Like a shadow, not a statue. The modern obsession with being authentic has confused visibility with value. But as Nietzsche warned, he who despises himself still respects himself as one who can despise. Mystery isn't about deception, it's about conserving your essence, not throwing it away for applause. True strength doesn't seek validation, it invites speculation, because when they can't define you, they can't defeat you. The world today worships exposure. It tells you to be open, be vulnerable, share your truth. And yes, vulnerability can build intimacy, but unchecked openness, it dissolves mystique, and mystique is power. Think about the most influential figures across history, from emperors to philosophers, from spiritual leaders to underworld kings. They mastered the art of selective visibility. They chose what to reveal. They knew that if you speak too plainly, your words lose weight. If you reveal too much, your presence loses force. Machiavelli warned that once your motives are fully visible, enemies multiply. Why? Because clarity makes you predictable, and predictability makes you penetrable. The uncertain man is always harder to trap. Take Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic emperor who wrote his deepest reflections in a private journal, not for public applause, but for self-mastery. His mystery didn't make him distant, it made him revered. His silence became a symbol of inner depth, not emptiness. Now contrast that with our age of algorithmic confession. We are trained to turn ourselves into content. We expose wounds for likes, scream our goals for validation, and dilute our essence into pixels. But when everything is said, what remains unsaid loses its weight, and the less they know about you, the more room there is for projection, for fear, for fascination. Sun Tzu said, "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt." In strategy, concealment isn't a weakness, it's a weapon. There's a reason magicians don't reveal their tricks, not because the trick is impressive, but because the mystery is. Once you decode the illusion, the awe collapses. The same is true in human perception. If people know your every move, your opinions on every issue, your routines, your psychology, they stop reacting to you. They start managing you. The human mind is wired to pursue what it can't fully grasp. It seeks to solve puzzles, not to admire what's been solved. And in that space between what's known and what's guessed, power grows. Being unpredictable doesn't mean being chaotic. It means mastering ambiguity. It means saying less, but meaning more. Acting less, but signaling deeper, and letting silence work louder than noise. Remember, you don't owe the world an open book. You owe yourself a sense of control, because once the pages of your soul are public property, your sovereignty dies. There's a reason why mystery seduces. It awakens the primal mind. Before logic, before language, there was only sensation and intuition, and in that realm, what we don't fully understand becomes what we most deeply desire. The unknown sparks imagination, and imagination, when unanchored by fact, is dangerous and powerful. That's why leaders throughout history never gave all of themselves. They left space to wonder, to doubt, to mythologize. Consider Cleopatra. Her presence was legendary, not only because of her beauty, but because of her enigma. Few knew her real thoughts, fewer still knew her plans. That ambiguity became her weapon. She was impossible to fully possess, so men tried to own her in stories. Or think of Bruce Lee. Yes, he was a fighter, but more than that, he was a myth. His philosophies were vague, his style uncopyable, his presence unsolvable. He became immortal not by being understood, but by being felt. In power, clarity can betray you. Once people believe they've figured you out, they no longer fear you. They categorize you. And once you've been categorized, you can be managed, boxed in, anticipated. But if you remain a question mark, you become a moving target. Harder to predict, harder to eliminate. Even in relationships, a touch of mystery cultivates depth. Constant availability breeds boredom. Predictability kills excitement. People don't crave transparency, they crave meaning. And meaning is often born in silence, in absence, in the gaps between words. This isn't about manipulation. It's about psychological survival in a world of noise. In an era where everyone is screaming their identity into the void, those who whisper are remembered. Those who vanish occasionally are searched for. And those who remain undefined are desired. Nietzsche once wrote, "They muddy the water to make it seem deep." But he wasn't praising deception. He was warning against cheap imitation. True mystique isn't faking depth. It's guarding your depth. Not everything sacred should be exposed. Not everything valuable should be explained. In an age obsessed with exposure, discretion becomes rebellion. Silence becomes a strategy, and mystery becomes a language, spoken only by those who've seen what too much clarity can destroy. To remain powerful, you must remain partially unknown, not because you're hiding something, but because you are something too vast to be reduced. And in a world desperate to define, label, and dissect, to be indefinable is to be untouchable. True dominance doesn't come from being loud, seen, or understood. It comes from presence, without predictability, power, without full accessibility, command, without confession. What people cannot fully grasp, they elevate. They fill in the blanks with awe or fear, or both. That's why the unknowable is often worshipped. That's why silence often speaks louder than statements. Machiavelli warned rulers not to overexpose themselves. Familiarity breeds contempt, he wrote. A prince who is too accessible loses reverence. When you are everywhere, you are nowhere. When everyone knows you, they stop needing to understand you. The mystery vanishes, and with it, the respect. It's the paradox of attention. The more you demand it, the less you deserve it. The most magnetic figures don't chase the spotlight. They allow it to chase them. So, how do you preserve this mystique in a world that monetizes exposure? Simple. Reveal strategically. Speak rarely. Act meaningfully. Let others guess your next move. And if they guess correctly, change the game. Keep your rhythm unpredictable, your intentions unreadable, your silence louder than their noise. The unknowable becomes untouchable, but there's more. In the game of influence, utility is not enough. Being talented, useful, or kind, these are not protections. They are expectations, and expectations are fragile shields. Because the moment your usefulness runs dry, they'll forget your name. This is the next brutal truth. In a world ruled by perception, relevance is not earned once. It must be constantly renewed. If you don't evolve, you become obsolete. And when you become obsolete, you are not mourned. You are replaced. So mystery alone is not enough. You must also remain needed, valued, irreplaceable. This is the harsh rule of relevance. You can be liked, admired, praised, and still eliminated. That's why some of the most powerful figures in history were not just mysterious. They were also adaptive, ruthless, willing to change masks, identities, tactics, anything to stay relevant without being consumed. Power is not about domination, it's about preservation, and those who preserve themselves through mystery and mastery outlast the ones who scream the loudest. Now ask yourself, are you unforgettable? Or just temporarily useful? Because in the next chapter, we'll dissect this brutal rule. Be useful, or be eliminated. And here's the question they never want you to ask. If the world only values what's useful, what happens to the parts of you that can't be monetized?